Hello, friends. Welcome to the Note Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. This is episode 307, a Why Wait case study with Angie. So, thank you so much for joining me today, Angie. I'm looking forward to diving in.
Me too.
If this is the first you're coming across my podcast, Why Wait is my signature program. And I have a few episodes with people who have participated before who have been generous enough to come on the show blind and have me ask them questions about the program. So yeah, it's a program for overgivers, overdoers, can't say noers, to basically put themselves first. Like, we all have a never-ending to-do list, and this is not a hot take, but we're all going to die with something on our to-do list. But often at the end of our to-do list is the stuff about us, and then we just never get time to do our things. So that's what the program's about, and I've invited some past participants to come and have a chat. And today it's Angie's turn. So what drew you to Why Wait in the first place? You've been in my world for a long time now, but if you can remember back when, what drew you to it in the beginning?
Well, because we met each other through some of our shared business coaches. We've been in the same groups before, and I just think you're awesome. I really love your vibe. And so when I heard you were doing a program, of course, I checked it out.
I love that. Thank you. And what were you thinking before you signed up? Because I love speaking to a fellow course junkie because, as someone who also does a lot of courses, you and I have moved in circles before we moved in this circle. What were you thinking about before you signed up to this program?
I probably wasn't thinking much.
I love
I'm
the
very much
honesty.
like the people. I'm like, oh, Suzanne's doing a thing. I'm in. Like
I love the
sometimes I
honesty.
do
Okay, I'm
that.
going to reword. Let's try it a different way. What's different about Why Wait than other programs you've done?
Oh my gosh, so much, so much. The clarity, for one thing, I just love how everything is laid out, everything's clear. There, you have good boundaries, which is great because you're teaching us to have good boundaries. So I should hope you do. You're very professional, but also down to earth and fun at the same time. So when you say you're going to do something, it happens. And if it doesn't happen, because sometimes life gets in the way, we're never left hanging. It's like, hey, here's the new plan.
I
So
love that.
that is really different. The fact that there's a start and a stop time, which sometimes feels frustrating, but mostly it's really good. And you explain why that is as well. And I really like, yeah, it's just so well laid out, like all the resources, and it's easy to find stuff. Yeah, and it's surprising how many people do programs where maybe it feels kind of frenetic. There's either too many people or it's unclear on how people are going to communicate.
I love
And the
that.
people, you attract really great people. I love the other people in this group as well.
I do, don't I? And for anyone
Yeah.
who's listening on audio, come watch us on YouTube because Angie has Sophie here in the background. You might be able to hear her little claws. Toenails? She's a dog. It's just like,
Was
her feet, her paws. And yeah, I love all the pets. I've always have all the room in all the world for all the pets. But I love how you're like the start and stop you both like and it frustrates you. And that is such a great point because as many of us course junkies get a program because it has a lifetime access. And we're like, I'll get to that. And Why
mm,
Wait is about taking the action now. What are you waiting for? And I have no doubt if it was a lifetime access program, I'd probably sell a lot more spaces. But then how many people would actually turn up and do the doing? Or how would it get so big that it'd be like many of these other lifetime programs that it's a race to the chat box when you actually do want to answer a question. So there is method to my madness, and I know it's not for everyone, but I love that you brought light to that. Next question, and you may not have an answer for this one, but we'll see what comes up. What was one doubt you had about Why Wait that's been resolved since it started?
ironically, because it is a program for overgivers, I doubted that I was an overgiver. And I'm like, I feel like I should be here, but I'm not one of those people.
I
And
love that you brought attention to
seriously,
this.
yeah, I don't know how many rounds I did before, and it was just the very last one, like not this one, but at the end of the one before this. So I'll say that's probably my 6th or 7th. Like I've been hanging out
You've
for a
been
couple of
in for a
years.
couple of years. Yeah, I think you might have
Yeah,
even done more. We tend to
we
do
probably
4
should have
rounds a
looked that up.
year. Yeah, but Angie's done a lot of rounds, and yeah.
Yeah. And like the information felt so useful, and I learned a little something every time, but it wasn't until the last one, right? I think it was even the last call
It
where I
was.
was like, oh my gosh, it is. I am.
And you know what it reminded me of? There's that clip from whatever TV show it is, but you hear the audio all the time. It's like, one of us, one of us. When you're like, oh, I'm an overgiver. And we're all like, yes. But 2 reasons that I want to highlight that was awesome that you brought to the attention. For anyone listening who's not interested in Why Wait, but just listens because you love me, thank you, and who's also in business, this highlights that although I'm not saying don't niche or whatever, it doesn't matter if your program is really specific. People who are attracted to your message or who think, oh, they'll get something from it, even if they're not that. Like you did 6 rounds of the program, maybe more, before you were like, actually, I am this, without even realizing you were the target market. So for anyone in business, don't get hung up on trying to make your message to everybody, because then it doesn't appeal to anyone. So, being narrow, I work with overgivers. Non-overgivers will come in. But the second point for anyone listening is like, oh, a lot of people who originally start working with me have a similar thing to you. That's like, I'm not an overgiver until I realized I was, because I do spend money on myself. I buy lots of programs, or I buy lots of books, or I go on trips. Like, overgivers, they're the people who give away the shirt off their own back or don't do anything for themselves. But there's a difference between I buy the courses and I actually sit down and action them and work through them, or don't just drop my stuff to go and help everyone else, or I toddle away from doing my own work and find work to do, like checking my email or other things to be responsive to others that we don't see initially as overgiving.
And that was where I was at, because I'm actually pretty good at saying no to things. Well, some things, not all, but yeah. So there were those patterns that I've thought of that weren't really there, and definitely the overdoing. And once I learned how that actually fits into the overgiving paradigm, things really clicked. And so this round we're in now has been probably the most powerful one for me, because I sort of have a different lens when I'm looking at the things we're doing.
Without naming names and going into detail, can I give a highlight view? Because I remember the thing that brought it attention to you. Can I share that? It's okay for you to say no. So
Yeah.
Angie was in another course, once again, course junkie, same as me. And somebody in the chat box asked a question that Angie was like, well, I could answer that, but I'd need to go and look it up and whatever. And I remember you saying, like, I don't need to answer this question. The facilitator can, or the person can figure it out from themselves. Like sometimes we step into, and I had a previous episode on the podcast that's called Weaponized Incompetence. So where people can't figure something out and they just kind of throw it out there and trust that somebody else will step in for them. And you were like, and by me doing that, I'm not saying don't help people and leave them to flail. Like, don't take what I'm saying the wrong way if you're listening to this. But if Angie's like, okay, I'm going to go find the answer for this person, like I'm going to go and Google it, or I'm going to go and look through the materials or whatever, then Angie's not present in the call, getting her needs met, doing her own work, because she's helping someone else who could Google it or go and look through the materials for themselves. Like, I think a lot of the stuff that we're wanting to do is to educate people how to take care of themselves. And when we jump in to fix or help, we're not actually getting what we need from being there. And that was just such a powerful share when you shared that with us. I was like, oh yeah, we all do it. Well, all the people I work with anyway. Alrighty. Okay. Next question. What was one surprising benefit you got out of Why Wait?
Some of the practical tools, pennies, like I know you've done a whole episode on pennies. I think you have.
Yeah, 100%.
That has been really powerful in my life, but I had to hear it like 5 times. But I mean, I'd have like this stop start thing, and then it's just like, because that's the thing, some of these tools are brought up with every session or every round rather, but they land differently depending where we're at. And so it took me a little while to really get the pennies thing. So that's been powerful. I like tools. I like kind of tangible things. Yeah.
Yes, I love that. And yeah, if anyone listening, if you go back through the episodes, look up, there's one on pennies. Another of the tools I teach is captain's orders. Another of the tools I teach is FOMO 5. Personally, this is the way I do business. Once again, not interested in white weight, segueing into, a business lesson. I don't gatekeep my content or my IP because the thing is, it's not what people pay me for. They pay me for the implementation. Like, if knowing was all we needed, there would be no coaching or programs. We would just read a book or listen to a podcast and go off into the sunset. So it's like, and I love how you pointed it. We may teach that concept every round because I teach it live, but when it's ready to land, it really lands, or you can kind of get it intellectually, but until you put it into practice and go, okay, I love when you come to calls. I tried this, Susan, this is what's happened. And I don't know if you're expecting me to be like a teacher and scold you or whatever. And I'm like, great. It's just, I love the reaction when people look at me surprised when I'm like, it didn't work. And I think it's great because then we've got something to work with. If you're driving your vehicle down the road and you keep veering left, veering left, veering left, and you pull over and you're like, oh, I've got a flat tire, you know what to fix. If you're driving your vehicle down the road and you keep veering left, you see nothing, you take it to a servo, you see nothing, you take it to another one, no one can figure out what's wrong. Jeremy and I had a car like that once. It would randomly just stop. It would just stop and you couldn't turn it on. And sometimes it would take 5 minutes and sometimes it would take 5 hours and it was dead in the water, but it was useless. One time we were on the highway and our car like just stopped and we went to, I don't know how many mechanics. And anyway, in the end, I shit you not, we gave this car away. I put it on Marketplace. I said, come and pick it up. All I want back is the number plate so I can go and make sure it's not registered to us. It is yours. And they were like, oh, I got to give you some money. I'm like, no, I can't in good faith charge for this. And because yeah, it was some intermittent fault. Whereas when you go, I tried this and this is what happened, we can work with that.
That brings up another thing that's different from your program that I really love is that it's all done in group. There are recordings, of course, but I love that there's so much group interaction. Like you teach live, and that is just golden.
Oh, thank you. Our groups are fabulous too. And it's always shaped by the people who come. Like people who come back, new people, the energy, what's happening in the world at the time, what's happening in our world. Like this round, we had a whole thing about snow and because it's winter for you and it's summer for us. And anyway, it's, yeah. Last question. If anybody was like on the fence or unsure and is thinking, oh, I don't know, what would you say to them?
I mean, I'd probably say just sign up already. I might encourage them to have, do you do exploratory calls?
Yep.
I would probably, that would be what I would recommend to them. I would highly recommend the program and then tell them to have a conversation with you.
Yep. So
and
you go to my website,
they would get
Suzanne.
A really good idea of how it might work then.
I love how we have a cat now. I've forgotten, what's your cat's name again?
Bella,
then Sophie. I love all the animals. So if you go to my website, suzannekohlberg.com, if you scroll down to the bottom, I've got some frequently uttered questions because I love having fucks on my website. One of them is on the fence. And then there's a thing there that you can book a time. On that call, it is not the sales call as in like, I'm not here to convince you. The only thing that I ask is you've read the page so that you know what you're asking me about. Because as I said, it's not a sales call. I'm not going to tell you all the ins and outs and ups and downs. But if you're like genuine questions, what about this? What about that? Let's have a discussion because it's not a fit for everybody. But I do understand it is an investment of, time, energy, and money. And I work with introverts and shy people. People don't believe me, but I am socially awkward and introverted. So going into a group program can be for people like me, very different experience. If you want to chat to me first, by all means. And I think you're the first person who's brought that up. So I'll give you the money for that later. Just kidding. Thank you so much for joining me, Angie and pets and everyone who's listening. And we'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.